Story 1. The Lake House Secret. This happened a few years back, the summer after my first year of college. My buddy Mark and I decided to spend the 4th of July at his family's lake house. It was a pretty old place, tucked away deep in the woods on the edge of a quiet lake in rural Pennsylvania. By rural, I mean really rural. The closest town was a good 30-minute drive, and cell service was practically non-existent. It was the perfect escape from the city, or so we thought. Mark's family had owned the place for generations. It was one of those classic, rustic cabins with creaky floorboards, a stone fireplace, and a faint smell of damp wood and old memories. Every 4th of July, they'd have a huge gathering. Cousins, aunts, uncles, family friends, the whole 9 yards. This year, though, it was just Mark, his parents, and me. His folks were planning on heading out early on the 5th, leaving us two to enjoy the quiet for a few extra days. The 4th itself was great. We spent the day out on the lake, swimming, fishing, and just generally relaxing. As evening approached, Mark's dad set off some fireworks they'd bought from a roadside stand. Nothing huge, just some sparklers and bottle rockets, but under the vast, star-filled sky, they felt magical. We had a bonfire, roasted marshmallows, and swapped stories. It was idyllic. Around midnight, everyone started heading to bed. Mark and I, being the young adults, decided to stay up a bit longer. We were sharing a small room upstairs, right at the back of the house, overlooking the dense woods. The lake was on the other side. We were just hanging out, scrolling through our phones for the last bit of signal, when we started hearing it. A faint, rhythmic scraping sound. Scrape, scrape, scrape. At first, we thought it was just the house settling, or maybe an animal outside. The woods around the lake house were teeming with wildlife, but the sound was too consistent, too deliberate. It sounded like something was being dragged across a rough surface just outside our window. Our window was on the 2nd floor, looking directly into thick, untouched forest. Mark and I looked at each other. "You hear that?" he whispered. I nodded, my heart starting to pick up a little. We killed the lights and crept to the window, peering out into the absolute blackness. The scraping continued, steady and unnerving. It felt like it was coming from directly below us, but slightly off to the side, maybe closer to the back corner of the house. We couldn't see a thing. The moon was obscured by clouds, and the tree line was so dense it swallowed all light. The sound stopped. We waited, holding our breath, straining our ears. Nothing. A minute passed. 2. We started to relax, figuring whatever it was had moved on. Then it started again, but this time it wasn't just scraping. There was a low, guttural moan accompanying it, a sound that made the hairs on my arms stand on end. It sounded pained and close, too close. Mark grabbed my arm. His face was pale in the faint light filtering in from the hallway. "Dude, what the hell is that?" We both just stood there, frozen, listening. The moaning intensified, becoming more like a desperate, ragged gasp. And the scraping? It sounded like something heavy, something big, being dragged right up against the house's foundation. We could feel a faint vibration through the floorboards. This went on for what felt like an eternity. We thought about waking Mark's parents, but we were both terrified and somewhat embarrassed. What if it was just an animal? What if we were overreacting? But the sounds were undeniably human-like, and the scraping, that dragging sound, it was just wrong. Eventually, the sounds faded, the moaning stopped, and the scraping grew fainter, as if whatever it was moving away, deeper into the woods. We stayed awake for hours after that, too scared to sleep. We kept the lights on, huddled together, jumping at every creak of the old house. The next morning, neither of us said a word about it to Mark's parents. They were already packed and ready to leave. As they pulled out of the driveway, Mark and I looked at each other. The unspoken question hung in the air. Do we go investigate? We had to. We couldn't just pretend it didn't happen. We walked around the perimeter of the house, scanning the ground. The grass was still damp with dew. When we got to the back corner, near where we'd heard the sounds, we stopped dead. There, in the soft earth, were clear, deep drag marks. Not just one or two, but a distinct set of parallel grooves, as if something incredibly heavy had been pulled through the mud and grass, leading directly into the thickest part of the woods. And beside the drag marks, faintly visible, were what looked like smudges of dark, dried liquid. It looked like blood, but it was impossible to tell for sure. We followed the marks for about 20 feet into the woods. The deeper we went, the more overgrown it became, and the harder it was to see. The marks eventually disappeared into a dense thicket of thorny bushes and tangled vines. We didn't dare go any further. The air in there felt heavy, oppressive, even in the morning light. We backed away slowly, our hearts pounding. We spent the rest of the weekend feeling incredibly uneasy, jumping at shadows, constantly looking over our shoulders. We didn't hear the sounds again, but the memory of those drag marks, and whatever they implied, stuck with us. To this day, we have no idea what happened that night. We never told anyone about it, not even Mark's parents. We just mutually agreed to never bring it up. The lake house still stands, still hosts family gatherings, but neither Mark nor I have been back for the 4th of July since. Some secrets are best left buried, especially in the dark woods. Story 2. The Fireworks Spectator. A low, sustained drone begins, growing slightly in intensity throughout the story, with occasional sharp, dissonant notes for jump scares. My name is Ethan, and I live in a quiet suburban neighborhood in Ohio. Every 4th of July, our town puts on a massive fireworks display down by the old quarry, a few miles outside of town. It's a huge event, attracting people from all over the county. Being somewhat of an introvert, I prefer to avoid the crowds. So for the past 5 years, I've had my own little tradition. There's this abandoned, overgrown lot on the outskirts of my neighborhood, about a mile from my house. It used to be a small farm, but it's been left to rot for decades. The fields are wild, the old farmhouse is falling apart, and there's a crumbling barn that looks like it's about to collapse. But from a specific spot near the back of the property, if you climb up a small rocky hill, you get a perfect, unobstructed view of the quarry where they launch the fireworks. It's far enough away to avoid the noise and crowds, but close enough to see the full spectacle. Last 4th of July, I decided to uphold my tradition. I packed a small cooler with some drinks and snacks, grabbed a blanket, and headed out around 8 p.m., just as the sun was starting to set. The walk to the lot was peaceful, the air was warm, and the scent of freshly cut grass mingled with the faint smell of sulfur from distant fireworks already going off. I reached my spot on the hill, laid out my blanket, and settled in. The sky was turning a deep indigo, and the first few official fireworks began to burst over the quarry in the distance. It was beautiful, just as I'd remembered. About 15 minutes into the display, as a particularly loud set of aerials exploded, I heard something. A rustling in the tall, dry grass below my hill. It wasn't the usual sound of a rabbit or a deer. This was heavier, more deliberate. My heart gave a little jump. I strained my eyes, trying to pierce the gloom, but the light from the distant fireworks was sporadic and only made the shadows dance. I told myself it was probably just an animal. I mean, I was in an abandoned field. What else could it be? But the rustling persisted, moving slowly, steadily, closer to the base of my hill. I pulled my legs up, ready to bolt if I needed to. Then, during a brief lull in the fireworks, I heard it clearly. A low, raspy cough. Not a human cough, but something unnatural. Like an old, dry lung struggling for air. And then a sound that made my blood run cold. A faint, almost imperceptible dragging sound, like something heavy being pulled through the thick underbrush. I froze. I wasn't alone, and whatever was down there was definitely not an animal. I couldn't see anything. The fireworks started up again, illuminating the field in brief, blinding flashes of color. In one of those flashes, I saw it. Just at the very edge of the tall grass, near a gnarled ancient oak tree, something moved. It was large, dark, and seemed to be hunched over. It moved slowly, almost painfully. It wasn't standing upright like a person. It was too low to the ground. Another flash of light. This time, I saw it more clearly. It was a figure, indeed hunched, but it wasn't an animal. It was wearing what looked like tattered, dark clothing. Its head was low, almost hidden, but the most disturbing thing was its gait. It wasn't walking. It was shuffling, dragging its feet, almost like it was broken, and it was moving towards my hill. Panic started to set in. My private, peaceful spot had been invaded, and by something truly terrifying. I slowly, carefully, started to pack my cooler, trying not to make a sound. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the straps. The fireworks reached their grand finale, a deafening barrage of light and sound. In the chaos, I risked a quick glance back down. The figure was closer now, much closer. It was at the base of my hill, completely still, its head still down. It was facing me. I couldn't make out any features, but I felt its presence, heavy and malevolent. As the final thunderous explosions echoed and the brilliant light filled the sky, I saw it again, starkly illuminated. The figure was still hunched, but now its head was lifted slightly, and I saw two pinpricks of light reflecting back at me from where its eyes should be. They weren't human eyes. They were too bright, too steady, like something inhuman, and they were fixed on me. I didn't wait for the last boom to fade. I scrambled down the other side of the hill, abandoning my blanket and cooler, and ran. I ran faster than I ever have in my life, tripping over roots and rocks, not daring to look back. I didn't stop until I burst through my back door, gasping for air, heart pounding like a drum against my ribs. I locked every door, every window, and spent the rest of the night huddled in my living room, lights on, listening to every creak of the house, every rustle outside. I never went back for my blanket or my cooler. I never went back to that hill. To this day, I have no explanation for what I saw. Was it a vagrant, an injured animal, or something far, far worse? All I know is that it wasn't human, and it was watching me. The 4th of July fireworks now bring a chill down my spine, a reminder of the night I became a spectator to something truly horrifying, something that lurked in the shadows, attracted by the light.